Um, I just want to go back and say that I had misstated. When I was saying it, I knew I was a little bit. I knew I was off. I knew I was getting something wrong, and I couldn't figure out what. The Machlekes Rebbe and the Chachamim. That whether the Parham Davar Shel Tzibur. I'm sorry. We said that. I'm sorry. The Parkoin Mashiach. Lebava is Kachamel Helm Davar Shegas Menalan. Masisin money Rebbe the Tanya Mashiach was Cham Rebbe I'm Beshigas Maisa v'Cham I'm Behelam Davar. So I had said it yesterday that the Rebbe says Beshigas Maisa and Helam Davar. The Cham, I'm sorry, Rebbe says only Beshigas Maisa, and the Chamim say I'm sorry, Rebbe says Beshig. Everyone agrees that a Kohen Mashiach could be over with a Shigas Maisa, and the question is if he could be over Behelam Davar. It's exactly the opposite. Rebbe says it's even Beshigas Maisa. Everyone agrees that Kohen Mashiach could be over, can bring the could be over Behelam Davar. The question is whether it's also Beshigas Maisa. Okay, so then the whole cheshbonus of the Gemara, all the limudim are different than as they were described. Zak the Mishnah. So, but let's go back to where we're up to on Daf Chesam at base. By the Mishnah, 6 lines in the top. Ein chayav al esev al loisasei shebemikdash. This sounds very familiar. Very unfamiliar, I mean to say. What do you mean when you're not chayav al loisasei shebemikdash? But what this really is a proxy for the carbon oil of Yared. As we remember from the beginning of the carbon oil of Yared is the carbon that is brought on 3 categories or 3 Averis. When someone is metama of the mikdash, we had this at the beginning of Shuas, right? Yeah. So if someone is tumas mikdash ukdashav, it says a long time ago. Tumas mikdash ukdashav, and someone who is asked to give edus and he makes a shvua that he doesn't know edus, and a shvua is biti. Those are the things that you bring a carbon oil of Yared. So this Mishnah, when it says Ein chayav al esev al lois shebemikdash, it's also talking about the other 2. It's talking about tumas mikdash ukdashav, as well as the other 2. But we're giving this as an example because this Mishnah is very unclear why it's phrased the way it is. But the way Rashi understands it is it wants to tell you a chiddush that tumas mikdash ukdashav has, as we're going to see, also ve'ein mevi'in asham tali. So we're saying a tzibur does not bring a carbon oil of Yared. Additionally, ve'ein mevi'in asham tali al esev al loisasei shebemikdash. And you also won't bring an asham tali. An asham tali is if someone's over on a lav, but or they're not sure if they were over on a lav. That means they ate one of 2 pieces of meat, and one is chaylev. So you might have b'shoigig eaten.
Is that an asham tali? Oh, asham tali is me, right?
Yeah, you have to remember the difference. Oil of Yared and asham tali.
Yeah, I thought you were going right.
So asham tali as well, a tzibur doesn't bring. Al esev al loisasei shebemikdash. So a carbon, one of these averis that you would bring the carbon of oil of Yared, which can be oil of Yared means that it could be either animal or it could be a bird or it could be a mincha. If the there's not going to be a asham tali if someone is not sure if they were over on the tumas mikdash ukdashav or shuas bitoi or shuas edus, those are not going to bring with it a asham tali. Aval chayv al esev al loisasei shebenida. These things are going to be chayiv on the esev al loisasei shebenida, meaning by nida Nida is a regular. It's a standard chatas of chatas kavua. We keep on calling it chatas kavua. I just want to clarify. It's called a chatas kavua as opposed to a carbon oil of yared. Oil of yared is variable. A regular chatas is not variable. When someone's over on a regular, anything besides these three averis, when a person is over on a lav shezdaine karas, he's going to bring he's going to bring a kisboy sira. He doesn't get a choice of which carbon to bring. So that's called a chatas kavua. The chatas oil of yared has a variety to what he can bring.
Osham told on shvuot. I mean, he made a false shvuah. So either it was false or it wasn't false.
Asham Tali or Asham.
Osham Tali.
You're saying how would you even have the case?
Yeah, I mean, either he lied or he didn't lie, or he.
She was beating.
How does that even look like?
I would have to remember, but let's say he made the Shuas Bitis. He said, let's say something's going to happen, and we don't know whether that thing happened or not. He said, I'm gonna eat basa today, and then he says, I know I ate basa one of the last 2 days. I don't remember who was the day. I said I wouldn't. I should.
Okay. What about Adus? I mean, either
he doesn't. He said that maybe I don't know. I knew Adus for one of these two people. I swore it, but then afterwards I remembered I knew for one of these two people, and I don't remember which one. Was it for the person that I made the shvua to, or for a different person?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Thomas Mikdash Dashav is easy. Yeah, but in any case, we're saying this is all just theoretical because the Mishnah is saying that there won't be a din of Ashram Tali on those Averes. But the Mishnah says you do have it by Esei Veloises Shebenida, which is a standard Chatas Kavua. Now, all of this is very strange. What are we talking about? Esei Veloises, and Rashi explains that the Mishnah is trying to tell you a chiddush that we're talking even on, as we're going to see. Let's just finish the Mishnah and then we'll go back to why it's saying this. Ezuhi mitzvah sasei shebenida. The Mishnah says, what is a mitzvah sasei shebenida? Proishim anida. Stay away from the mitzvah loy sasei al tovei al anida. The Torah says you have to stay away from anida, and then it says you shouldn't. If someone is born anida, he's over on the loy sasei. Now there is no chatas, there's no ashram tali, and none of these things apply on essays. The Mishnah is trying to tell you, even this applies, it will all be the same, even if you have a lav that also has an essay with it as well.
Why do you think otherwise?
That's a good question. And I think other Rishonim have different ways of understanding the Mishnah because it's, like I said, it's peculiar. You see, there's long Rashis on this. There's long Rashi. But let's to boil it down. I think we could, as far as the Gemara is concerned, this is not coming up again. So the lesson of the Mishnah is the original point that a tzibur is not going to be mechayev carbon oil of yared, a non chatas kabua, but a chatas. I'm sorry, it's not a chatas kabua. It's not going to be these particular isurim that we mentioned in the parsha. Maybe even Ashram Toli, and they're also excluded. And just the tzibur can't bring it, but it's also they're not going to have an Ashram Toli. Zok Gemara. We know animili that tzibur loy mechayevi carbon b'alma. Where do we see that the tzibur will not bring the carbon oil of yared? V'yachid asham tali nami loy, as well as the din that there's just two dinim that we just said that a yachid, a non-tzibur, will not bring the carbon oil of yared, or as the Mishnah called it, a tumas mikdash, loisa say shem mikdash, where it's a tali, where it's uncertain whether it was over. The Torah says va'asham by chatas, meaning by regular chatas like the chatas shebenida, va'asham tali, and it says va'asham by asham tali. Obviously, it's called va'asham. What is the pasuk by Asham Tali? It says, I'm sorry, first we'll say by Yochid, the Nechesh Achas Sechte B'Shkoga Yama Arts V'Asaisa Achas Hashem Shalisas and Avi Ashem. Okay, so that's in our handy little list over here. That's the regular Chatas Kavua, the fourth thing on the list, and Legabe Asham Tali, it says Nefesh Kisechta V'Asa Achas V'Gal Mitzvah Hashem Shalisas V'Lo Yada V'Ashem. That's the case, but no Safan, he doesn't know whether he was over. So we have a hackish between the two things, or a gzeirish between the two things. B'nemar v'ashmoi b'tzibur, and it says also the word Ashem b'tzibur. Ma v'ashem b'yachad b'chatas kavua, just like the v'ashem by yachad is chatas kavua, af v'ashem b'tzibur b'chatas kavua. So when the Torah says a lashon of Ashem by a carbon tzibur, by a parhalam davar shel tzibur, it's talking about only a chatas kavua as opposed to oil of yared. Umat tzibur b'chatas kavua, and just like the din of the parhalam davar shel tzibur is only by chatas kavua as opposed to, since we have this hakish, it's only by chatas kavua as opposed to ashum oil of yared. Avasham tali nami ein bo el safek chatas kavua. Asham tali will also be restricted to these three things, learning out one from the other, that the carbon tzibur as well as the Asham Tali are going to only, they're compared to a Chatas Kavua and not to a carbon oil of Yard. Amri. The one talking about Ihachi, carbon oil of Yard, Nami, Haksiv, Hayaki, Yasham, Lachas Me'ela. And when it says, oh, you're so smart, you have a Hekesh, you have a Gzeir Shava of both Tzibur and Asham Tali to Chatas Kavua, because it says V'Yashem, and therefore it's only compared to Chatas Kavua, which says V'Ashem, and not to Carbon El V'Yared, but also says a lashon of Ashem by Carbon El V'Yared. It says the word Ashem seems to be very common throughout the Torah. All these things seem to say V'Ashem. So your Gzeir Shava would include El V'Yared. It says Ashem legabe carbon Yard. Saknamara, done in Ashem me Hashamai, vein done in Ashem min Yesham. Yesham is a slightly different lashon, so we don't include Oil Yard since it's not the exact same word Ashem. Saknamara, ma'naf gemino tante be Rabbi Yishmael v'shava kind of zui shiva zuhi bia. This should be familiar words to us. Whenever we try the Gemara, for some reason, it's so interesting. It must be 50 times throughout Shas. The Gemara tries to say that you don't make the Gzeir Shava, you make the Gzeir Shava only on the exact same word and not the same. And then it brings this same Machloikas, that it's this same rule that we say, Legabi and Mitzaira, that we say that the Shava Kayin means that the Kayin returns the same way. The Shiva of the Kayin doesn't mean that he goes back to his house, but it means he goes back to check on the Mitzaira. We say, even though it's different words, Shiva and Bia, but since it comes to the same root, we make the Gzeir Shava. It says V'Ashem by one of the constituent Averis that make up the general rule of Oil of Yared. And maybe that's why the Mishnah mentioned specifically Mikdash Ukdasha of Dechsev Hu Tamei V'Ashem. It says the word Ashem on one of them, and it's the exact same word. Amra Papa Donin V'Ashem Mitzvahs Hashem Min V'Ashem Mitzvahs Hashem. So I have to look at Rashi to remember which things this is. These psukim are. And Don Zak Rashi Don Ashem Mitzvahs Hashem Dechsev V'Ashem Tali. It says V'Ashem Tali V'Ashem Mitzvahs Hashem. Maybe Ashra Mitzvahs Hashem, which it said, no, that's not where it is. Mitzvah Hashem lafu. Hashem told him, Mitzvah Hashem lafu Thomas Mikdash Ukdashav. The Lord said Hashem Mitzvah Hashem. It says Hashem Mitzvah Hashem. I think that's by the Chatas Kavua. No, it's probably by the Palam Dava Shem Kol Asisku now Dava Mania Kol Vasa Shem Shlois Vashem. Yeah.
So one is by the Ashim Tali and one is by Parvalam Dava?
I'm trying to see. I don't see it by Palam Dava. At least not the Vashem or Mitzvah Hashem. What does it say? Yeah. It says by Palam Dava. Also Achas Mikol Mitzvah Hashem Asher Lo Yasan. It says Mitzvah Hashem like by Palam Dava Shel Tzibur. It says Hashem and it says Mitzvah Hashem.
So then we should compare the Ashim Tali.
No, we're not. You're mixing up Asham Tali and Oila V'Yared. Saying instead of we wanted to say Asham Tali and Chatas Kavua and Carbon Sibur are all in one group, and the Oila V'Yared is excluded. And we said it was because of the Ashem. So we said, but Oila V'Yared also has the Ashem. So we're saying no, it's not just Ashem. It's Atem and Mitzvah Hashem, which is by specifically Carbon Oila V'Yared. I'm sorry, by Asham Tali and Param Dava Shel Tzibur. And since those are already included with Chatas Kavua, so then it only those two things have a Chatas Kavua as opposed to a Carbon Oila. They only are applied to a Chatas Kavua, not the Oila V'Yared.
Ashim Tali, there is no Bethan is not Machayev and Ashim Tali.
No, we're saying that they both are going to be Machayev and a Chatas Kavua. Both Carbon Sibur. We're trying to exclude Oila V'Yared from Sibur and from Asham Tali. So we're saying Asham Tali and Sibur are both compared to Chatas Kavua, and they're not because they all say V'Ashem and it says Mitzvah Hashem, so they're together in being excluded from Oila V'Yared and being limited to Chatas Kavua. Yeah. Sak the Gemara. Amalei Rav Shimi bar Ashi Ler Papa v'Neila v'Ashem v'Nesias Oven min v'Ashem v'Nesias Oven. It says Dalid. That's by Asham Tali, and it says Asham Nesias Oven by a Carbon Oila V'Yared. Is that Nefesh Kisechta v'Shama Kol Olavu Eidai Ra Yada Lo Yagid v'Nasa Avaynai? So why are you saying the Mitzvah Hashem to put Asham Tali and Sibur in a different class from Oila V'Yared? Let's use V'Nasa Avaynai to say Asham Tali is compared to Oila V'Yared, that you'll even have a Asham Tali on Oila V'Yared, on one of those three mitzvahs on Mikdash Ukdasha. Elam Rav Nachman Yitzchak Donin v'Ashem u'mitzvahs Hashem asher lo yisayaseno may v'Ashem mitzvahs Hashem asher lo yisayaseno. So he says no, because we're leaving out. We're going to stop with Ashem mitzvahs Hashem, and we're going to stop with Ashem Nesias Oven, because there's a limud, there's a comparison between Carbon Sibur and Asham Tali, which has two elements to it. It's not just either Nesias Kapayim and the Hashem, Nesias Oven, or Mitzvah Hashem. It says Mitzvah Hashem Asher Lo Yasen, a two-part comparison. It's both Mitzvah Hashem and Asher Lo Yasen. But the three things, the three components of Oila V'Yared, they don't have that three parts of Hashem together with two other things. So therefore, it's going to be on the outs. So that's just going to get us back to our original din that we said in our Mishnah, that when one is over on those three mitzvahs that we learned at the beginning of Shavuos, the din of Asham Tali and the din of Carbon tzibur is not going to apply to it. A carbon parallel davashal tzibur.
Whenever it says Osham, the Gemara means Osham Tola.
But well, we're using the word ba'ashem also as a gzeir shav, the word itself. Ba'ashem.
I wish. That was so simple.
Yeah.
You can go back and forth.
The word ba'ashem means guilty.
Right.
But then there's also carbonus. There's a carbon ashem tali, which is a special carbon that we bring that's in the parsha in Vayikra of Nefesh Kisefta Asach Komitz Hashem Soisenda V'Yadav Ashem Nosavoine Ayil Tamina Ashem. It says Ashem Alakim V'Chibur Alakim Shegos Shegos. Ashem Hu Ashem Lashem. It says Ashem like 4,000 times in that pasuk. That's what we call the Ashem Tali.
And Ashem Tali is where you don't know if you actually did it, right?
Right.
You don't find it.
So even in the Chumash, when it says Osham, it means Osham Tola?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
It's
Not at all.
That's right. That's what I thought. But
the word Ashem is all over the place. Almost every parsha over here uses the word Ashem.
So,
It means
Yeah,
Ashem usually means in the
Ashos.
context. It's saying Ashem is guilty, and that was our original Gzeir Shavat. It says Ashem. So we wanted to say Ashem leaves out carbon oil yerid. But it says Ashem by carbon oil yerid also. So that Gzeir Shavat. But and the question is, does Ashem Talui, this special din of the carbon that you bring when you're not sure if you are Iver, is that going to apply in these other places in carbon by the three things that make up a carbon oil of a Yerid and by Parhalam Davashal Tzibur when the Tzibur was Iver? And the answer is no, because we have, in addition to the word V'Ashem, that's Gzeir Shavu, it also says Nisias Avain and Mitzvah Hashem by Ashem Tali as well as by carbon tzibur, by Param Shel Tzibur, which excludes the din of Ashem of Halam Dav. I'm sorry, carbon oil of Yerid, which does not have all those three words. So therefore, it's excluded from the din of tzibur and Ashem Tali.
generally speaking, when the Chumash says Osham, it means you're going to need to bring some sort of a korban. Right.
Not dafka. Ashem just means you're guilty, and certain carbon. It's like I'll give you an example. You know what it's like? We're talking about the carbon oil of Yerid. It means a carbon that goes up and down. It's nothing to do with the carbon oil. It's the same thing.
Right.
Even though it says Ashem Tali, it does not mean.
Oh, I would definitely the nomenclature. I would if I had it. If they would ask me. I would
make
change
new
it,
words.
Yes.
It means different words.
Chavis kavua, chavis in kavua. How about that?
Right.
That would be yeah.
Oil of Yerid really means in a kavua.
That's what the word. I've been having a lot of.
You mean Oila? The Oila you keep popping at the head and Oila.
Yeah.
No, it means Oila go up and down.
Every time you say Ashma Tali, I'll have to remember which is which.
Yeah, I know it's very hard.
Nomenclature is not working for me.
It's kachim, so like
It's very new.
Yeah, it has to sink in. Things are gonna. It's repetition. We're starting from scratch. We're mama starting from scratch.
Yes.
Sorry for confusion.
Okay. So the Mishnah. Ein chayaven al shmias koil v'al bitis v'sayim v'al tumas mikdash ukdashav. This is very much a repetition of the previous Mishnah, which is it's talking about the same three things that make up a carbon oil of Yerid, a carbon that can be varied depending on how much money the person has. So the tzibur is not going to be mechuyev if the bezdin gave a hayra and the tzibur, Raiva the tzibur, were either on shmias koil. That means that someone said they want you to say edus, albitus asayim, or they said that it's okay to make a shavua, shuas bita, a false shavua. Thomas mikdash ukdashav, or they said that it's mutter to go into the mikdash when you're tamei. That you're not going to be mechuyev that carbon if the bezdin paskined and the kahila did it b'shayim.
Aren't these other yards?
These are the yards.
Yes,
Yeah.
why are we repeating it? We just.
Right. It's as I just said, repeating the same din. It's to tell you the second part of the Mishnah. Okay. We're going to continue on. Hanasi ki yaitzaban. A nasi is the same thing. A nasi is also is going to bring The Nasi is also going to be like the Tzibur. A Nasi, we say, has a special carbon that he brings when he's over on a lav, a sawyer Nasi, right? Asher Nasi yechtav v'asach v'chometz Hashem alikecha alikav asher lo yisasenu b'shkaga v'ashem ha'yoydach az rikatava bevis kabani sawyer yizim zachar tam. He's different than everyone else. A regular person by a chatas kavua, he can bring a kisva seira, a female goat or a female sheep. But a Nasi, a king, he brings the pasuk says he brings the sawyer, and additionally, what we're saying now in the Mishnah, he's also if he's going to be over on a carbon oil of a yared, he's also going to be excluded from bringing the carbon oil of a yared, because then he's not. It's part of the din of bringing a chatas kavua, as the Gemara is going to explain. That's what Rabbi Yisegli says. Rabbi Kiva Aimer, and we're going to say the reason why. Rabbi Kiva Nasi Chay Bekulam Chutz Mishmias HaKoil. The Nasi, no, he disagrees. The Nasi could be mechayiv on these three things that you could be mechayiv a carbon oil of yared, but the only thing is excluded from is Shmias Koil. If he's asked to make a eight say edus and he lies, he makes a shvua that's untrue, that he doesn't know the edus. Why is that? A king is excluded from being a dayan or to be judged, and he also is excluded from saying edus. So since he can't say edus, if he's asked to say edus, the real answer is I can't say edus to begin with. He's really excluded from it to begin with. So then his shvua is really irrelevant. It's like you come to ask someone. It's like you go to ask a woman to say edus. She swears I don't know edus. She doesn't make a difference whether she knows it or not. She's not a kosher aid. So king is also not a kosher aid. So therefore, he's only excluded from that. Rabbi Yisrael said he's excluded from everything. Amar Ula, my time to Rabbi Yisrael. Why does Rabbi Yisrael say that a nasi, a king, is excluded from all three of the parts of a carbon oil of yared? The pasuk says when someone is guilty for one of these three things, again, not an asham tali, yeah. The only person who could be mechoyev, this is the pasuk, it says by carbon oil of yared. So only someone who's capable of being eligible for all three of these things, of the tumas mikdash ukdashav and a shmias koil, meaning to say edus, as well as shuas bitoy, he is able to be over on any. He's able to bring any of them. But someone who's excluded from any one of them is excluded from all three.
Looks as a group.
Yes. So what says, what does that mean? Just how do you see that from the pasuk? Maybe it just means when he's over on one of them, then he's over on that one. But if he can't be over on a different one, that one he can't, and this one he could. It's very what was the back and forth on this? Ella time of the Rabbi Yisrael from a different thing. The Tanya, Nemar lesagia yadai, the Nemar lesasik yadai. We keep on talking about a carbon oil of yared. The carbon oil of yared is because if a person is wealthy, he brings an animal. If he's a little bit poorer, he brings a bird. He brings tzipirim, and if he can't bring the tzipirim, then he brings a flour. He brings a mincha. So then loisagia yadai is talking about if he's to bring a set, to bring a sheep, then he brings the tzipah. And then it says if he can't bring the bird, then he brings the flour. Misha bali de'anias vashiris. So it means it has to, in order to be included in a carbon oil yared, it has to be someone who's in the parsha of being rich or poor. Yatsa nasi u'moshiach. This is the first time we're mentioning Mashiach, but the nasi as the king as well as the kohen gadol, that there's no possibility of anias by them. How do we know this? Nasi it says by the nasi he should do mikol mitzvah Hashem alikav misha ein al gabav ela Hashem alikav. Yes, the nasi is someone that the only person on top of him is God. So, like if Elon Musk would be disqualified now from being the nasi, they just saw that someone else overtook him in the being rich. The only person who could be the Nasi is the person who's no one's richer than him. I didn't even see who's ahead of him. Ellison. Oh, a Jew.
Yeah. Finally.
Yeah. Mashiach Tuchsev. So that's how you know this. So the Nasi is excluded from a carbon oil of a Yared because he can never be poor, because the Torah says he has to be richer than everyone besides the Rebbeinu Shalom. Mashiach Tuchsev Akain Agadol Me'achav. Shu Gadol Me'achav. He has to be greater than his brothers. He has to be Gadol, bigger than his brothers. Benoi in beauty, Bekayach in strength, Bechachba in wisdom, Uba'osher, and in wealth. So I'm not really sure how you can have a Kohen Gadol and a Nasi at the same time. I don't think it means to say literally that he has to be Musk or Ellison. It means he has to be wealthy. I don't think, because obviously, right, you can't, only one person could be the wealthiest.
He doesn't want anyone else for finances.
You're saying the reason, you're saying the time of the crop.
He's Kohanim?
So he has to be the richest from the Kehanim, and the Nasi has to be the richest of everyone. Maybe. I think it's more likely that he it says Rashi says El Hashem the Hainu Melech Olam Asheru. He always has to be an usher. I don't think it means Gadol Me'achav that he has to be literally the highest. It just means he has to be above the average.
The reason from Russia's bottom because he might consider it come to a state of poverty because he might one day suffer a reverse of his fortune. A king is presumed to have wealth of such magnitude that it is impossible under normal conditions for him to become impoverished. I think the richest for everyone.
Yeah.
It's just that wealthy.
That was hyperbole. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
The Rama mentions in the bottom the way you make the claim so rich that you actually the other Kahanim pool their money together.
Well, we're going to get to that. That's the Gemara. It's like the Gemara. How do we know that if the Kohen Gadol doesn't have enough money, he gets from the other Kohanim? The Kohen who's greater than his brothers, that he has the Mashiach, that he gets anointed. Means that he has to get his brother. They have to make a GoFundMe from the other Kehanim to make sure he's the richest. So, but in any case,
James arguing.
They're arguing about what the source is.
Okay.
Yeah. But in any case, this is why the Kohen Gadol as well as the Nasi are not included in carbon oil of a Yerid, since they're always oil than ever Yerid. It has to be someone who can depend on the circumstances at which carbon will bring. The carbon, the flour carbon and the tzipor carbon are only available to poor people, and they'll never be poor. Ba'minei Ravina Me'erav Nachman Yitzchak Nasi shenitztara, a Nasi that became a Mitzvah, and therefore a Mitzvah has to be kicked out of his malchus. Does he get pushed away? No longer is he just temporarily that he's no longer the Nasi, but he still has the thing that he's they say that but now that he's no longer the Nasi, he can now bring the carbon out of the yard. Amifte Potter, or is he excluded? Amli Delachai de Gaza says who's going to pay for the carbon oil yard? Is it going to be from you or from the community? No, the Nasi remains rich. The way the Rashi says, he remains rich. He's still going to pay from his own thing. The same reasoning is going to apply even when he's an ex-Nasi. Ex-Nasi still has his pension. He's still a very wealthy man, and he's never going to pay from his own thing. He's never going to be a Dallas. Tanya Rekiva Mashiach Potter Mikulan. Akiva says the Mashiach is Potter from all of them, right? Amarava, my time of the Rebbe Akiva, right? So that was the Machlekes in the Mishnah. Rebbe Akiva, we were talking in the Mishnah about the Machlekes Rabbi Yosef Glili and Rebbe Akiva Lagabi the Nasi. But now we're saying Rebbe Akiva, and Rebbe Akiva said he's only Nasi is Chayiv, is only excluded from Shmias Kol. He doesn't agree with this drasha that everything is excluded. He just said it's because of Shmias Kol, because he can't be a aid. But he doesn't agree with this then that he's excluded from everything because of he can't become poor. But then he says, "L'gabi the Mashiach, Patmi Kulin." He's patur on all of them. So what's the reason? Remember, my time there we keep. I'm across Zeh Karban Aaron, but Zeh Zu B'Chay V'Loi, Ben Acheres B'Chay V'Loi. That this is the carbon of Aaron and his sons. This is a chayv to him, but nothing else is a chayv. So he's excluded from. He's excluded from the carbon oil of Yod. The Gemara, the Ema Kimayle Rachmana Medali Dalis, Umayniu Asiris Aifa, Avanias Asiris Loy Matcha. That carbon of Aaron Ubanov is talking about that the carbon he brings the minchas chavitin every day. So saying that's the carbon that he brings chavitin, that he brings flour, but he doesn't bring the carbon oil of Yod. So the Gemara says maybe he's just excluded from the flour part of a carbon oil of Yod, but the other carbonates he can bring. So come on, say v'chipa olav hakoyin al chatofa yeshachata me'achas me'ela ha'miskapa ha'miskapa b'kulan she'en miskapa b'achas ein miskapa b'kulan. We learned from Achas, very similar, like we had said before, Lagabi the Sarv and Nasi being excluded from all the parts of carbon oil of Yod, all the three Averis. We're going to say from Rekiva saying that you're excluded from all three kinds of carbon oil of Yod, but both the animal and the tzipor and the flour. So the Gemara, so the Gemara asks, maybe he's only excluded from the flour. So you say from me'achas. Now, if he's saying darsha me'achas, they'll say, why does Rabbi Kiva make the same drasha legabe our Mishnah, legabe being pattering the Sar and Nasi from all three different types of averis? He says you could be chayiv on the thing that's not shmis, but it doesn't dash in achas. It depends. Legabi the three, the carbon oil of Yod, the three carbonis. It says me'achas there he dashes. That means if he loses one, he loses all three. But le'achas that it says by the three averis of carbon oil of Yod, he doesn't dash. No ma'ishna me'achas the mashmalei. Why is me'achas? Why does he say me'achas means that it's all three things? Remember the chol mischai basir seif mechai b'kol. He's like that. He shouldn't have said it legabi flour, which is the one that's anyway also. He should have said it by one of the other three, which the kohen gadol is not. He doesn't bring the chavitin, so that would be more clear. If he wanted to make that point, it would have said it on one of the other three things.
Thank you. Have a great day.